As religious people, how should we approach issues like that, about how to choose between candidates who may not be personally moral but may forward our priorities, and disengage completely? What do you think the solution is?
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenging reality. It's less challenging today than it used to be. Because again, you have a party that advocates the killing of babies. I can't vote that. I don't care who the other guy is. You're looking in some ways at the lesser of two evils, but you always are in society anyway, because nobody is perfect. So what I'm looking for in a leader, and it may come down to a simple analogy. If I'm going to have a brain surgeon, open my brain, I'm really not too concerned about his moral life. I would like to know that he's been in somebody else's brain and done the right thing whenever he's been there, and he knows his way around. There's a certain skill set for leadership. There's a certain ability that people need to effect change. And if you have a guy who manifests the ability to do that, the presidency is not a moral job. It's not a position of moral authority. It never has been. We don't want to make it into that now. You choose the best you've got, which would be someone who does justice, fears God. That is to say, there's a transcendental ought that binds his heart. You're looking for that in a president, and then you're looking for competence. And competence is really defined, in my judgment, at that level as leadership ability. So who has the leadership ability? Who can move things in the right direction? And who's closest to a biblical moral standard? Without expecting that he would be faithful to that fully, who's closest to it?
What we ought to be doing is stop looking to the presidency at all as the builder of the social fabric. In other words, it's our job in our communities to build the social fabric. Let the president do what the president needs to do policy-wise.
Yeah, and look, you can't blame him for the complete destruction of the family.
Sure.
He had nothing to do with that. That's why the fabric's coming apart. You know, when you think about how God looks at this or any society, the default position of humanity is brutally corrupt. The scripture says, submit to the powers that be, that they're ordained of God. That does not mean that every ruler represents God. Clearly, that is not the case. But that governmental authority is a God-given institution to repress evil and to reward good behavior, just as parents have that role and the conscience has that role we've talked about. So when I talk about the government, I'm not saying that the government is a divine authority or that the rulers are divine authorities. But what I am saying is that they represent a God-given constraint to human behavior. And that's why they have to be upheld and not broken down. So Christians don't attack the government. We don't protest. We don't riot. We don't start shooting people who are in the government. Even if the government is King George from England and we don't like him, and even if we're upset with taxation, we don't start riots and we don't start revolutions.